Okay, so today we're going to do a deep dive into something that honestly might feel kind of heavy to some folks out there.
Yeah, total.
Life insurance. But we're going to be focusing on a specific situation when you're living with hepatitis B.
It's a big one.
It is, and we've got some awesome info from Diversified insurance brokers to help us unpack all this. These guys, they're like these specialists in helping people with, pre-existing conditions get the right coverage. So no need to feel lost in the woods here. We'll be your guides.
Right on.
Now, I think the first question on a lot of people's minds is, can you even get life insurance if you have Hep B?
Absolutely.
Okay, good. That's good to hear.
It's not a deal breaker. It might not be quite as straightforward as, for someone without a pre-existing condition, but there are definitely paths to getting that coverage.
Okay, so that's reassuring. But I imagine insurance companies probably look at these cases a little differently.
They do, yeah.
Like, what are the factors that they're considering? What's going on in their minds when they're evaluating someone with hepatitis B?
It all comes down to risk, right? That's how insurance companies think. And a few things come into play. First off, they want to know if your hepatitis B is acute or chronic.
Okay, so like a one-time thing versus
Exactly.
something that's ongoing.
Ongoing. So acute means you had the infection, but you bounced back. Chronic means you're living with it long term.
Got it. So that's like the first big hurdle for them, figuring out acute versus chronic.
Yeah. And then they also look at your liver health. Big time. That's key, right?
Makes sense?
They want to see how your liver's doing, because that's where hepatitis B really does its thing. They'll check your viral load. There's basically a measure of how much of the virus is in your blood. The lower the viral load, the better, generally speaking. They want to know about any treatments you've had, past or present. And then, of course, just your overall health picture in general. So it's all these pieces of the puzzle that they're trying to put together.
Okay, so you brought up the acute versus chronic thing right at the beginning, and I think it's worth unpacking that a little bit more because that seems like a pretty major distinction.
Yeah.
So let's say someone had an acute infection and they made a full recovery. Does that mean they're basically good to go, like they're in the clear as far as insurance is concerned?
Well, in many cases, yeah. If you fully recovered, your liver's probably doing all right. You might even qualify for standard rates, just like someone without hepatitis B.
Oh, wow.
It's not always a given, but it's definitely possible. The flip side is if it's chronic hepatitis B.
Yeah, and that's probably where a lot of our listeners are at.
Right, and especially if there are signs of liver damage, like cirrhosis, for example, or your liver enzymes are high, then the insurers get a little more cautious.
Sure, they see that as higher risk.
Yeah, exactly. Higher risk, and that could translate into higher premiums. And just to be upfront, a high viral load, that can also raise a red flag because it means, potentially a greater risk of complications down the line.
So it's kind of like a domino effect?
Yeah.
One thing leads to another.
Yep.
All right, so for someone listening who does have chronic hepatitis B, it sounds like there's still hope, but yeah, they might be looking at those higher costs.
Yeah, for sure. There's still hope. And just to give you an idea of what we're talking about when we say higher costs, you might be looking at premiums that are 1.5 to 3 times higher than the standard rate. It really depends on your specific situation, but that's kind of the ballpark.
Okay. But even in those cases, it sounds like there are still options available, right?
Absolutely. There are options specifically designed for folks in this situation. Things like simplified issue or guaranteed issue life insurance. These are kind of like specialized pathways to getting coverage.
Okay, so now we're getting into the jargon. Did you break down those different types of insurance for us?
Sure, yeah. It can be confusing.
Because I think it would be really helpful for our listeners to understand how those work and what the pros and cons are.
Totally. So let's start with the most common type, which is fully underwritten life insurance.
Okay.
This one usually gives you the best rates, but it comes with a bit more hoops to jump through.
Hoops, like?
Like a medical exam. They want to get a good look at your health history, really do their due diligence.
Got it.
Then there's simplified issue. This one, like the name suggests, is a bit simpler, a bit more streamlined.
I like streamlined.
Right. Usually you can skip the medical exam, which is a big plus for a lot of people.
Yeah.
But you'll still have to answer some health questions. It's not a complete free pass.
Sure.
And then there's guaranteed issue. This is the ultimate no fuss, no muss option.
Sounds good.
You're automatically approved. No medical exam, no health questions, just straightforward coverage.
So what's the catch?
Well, there's always a catch, right?
Yeah.
With guaranteed issue, the premiums tend to be higher because the insurer is taking on more risk.
Makes sense.
And there might be a waiting period before the full death benefit kicks in, like maybe 2 years or so.
Oh, I see.
So it's kind of like a delayed gratification thing.
All right, so it's a trade-off. The more health info you're willing to give, the better the deal you might get.
Pretty much, yeah.
But there are options if you're not comfortable with the whole medical exam thing, or if you just want things to be a bit simpler.
Exactly. It's all about finding what works for you.
For sure. Now, from all of your experience working with folks who have hepatitis B and are navigating the world of life insurance, what do you think is like the number one most important thing for them to remember?
That's a good question. I would say be proactive. Don't just sit back and wait for things to happen. You actually have more control than you might think. If you're taking good care of your liver health, following your doctor's recommendations, staying on top of your treatment plan,
Yeah,
all of that shows the insurance company that you're being responsible, that you're managing your condition effectively.
right.
And that can make a big difference in your premiums.
I love that. That's a really empowering message. It's not just about accepting whatever rate you're given. You can actually take steps to improve your chances of getting better coverage.
Absolutely. It's about taking ownership of your health and your future.
Now, for someone listening who's thinking, okay, this all makes sense, but where do I even begin? Diversified insurance brokers really hammered home the importance of working with a broker. Why is that so crucial, especially in a situation like this?
Well, imagine trying to navigate a really complex maze, right?
Yeah,
You could stumble around on your own and maybe eventually find your way out, or you could have a guide who knows the maze like the back of their hand.
right.
A good insurance broker is like that guide. They understand the ins and outs of life insurance, they know the different policies inside and out, and they know how hepatitis B factors into the equation. They can walk you through everything, help you compare quotes from different companies, make sure you're getting the best deal, and just overall take a lot of the stress and confusion out of the process.
It's like having an advocate in your corner.
Yeah, exactly. Someone who's looking out for your best interests.
And they also had another great tip that I thought was worth repeating. Shop around. Don't just go with the first quote you get.
Oh, absolutely. That's huge.
Getting quotes from multiple carriers can make a big difference.
It's like comparison shopping for anything else, right?
Yeah,
You wouldn't buy a car without checking prices at a few different dealerships.
right.
Life insurance is a big decision, a big financial commitment. So, yeah, shop around, compare your options, make sure you're getting the best value for your money.
Couldn't agree more. So let's bring it all home. What are the key takeaways our listeners should be walking away with today?
Okay, so big picture, even with hepatitis B, you've got options for life insurance. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise.
Love it.
Knowledge is power. Understand how the different factors play into your rates. Be proactive with your health. And for goodness sake, find yourself a good insurance broker who can guide you through the process. Don't try to go it alone.
And remember, this is all about peace of mind.
Exactly. Think about what financial security means to you, to your loved ones. Life insurance is that safety net,
It's a way to make sure your family's taken care of.
no matter what. And just taking that first step, reaching out to a broker, exploring your options, that's already a huge win. It shows you're taking control. You're prioritizing your family's well-being.
Well said. And on that note, we'll wrap things up. Thanks for joining us for another deep dive.
Thanks, everyone.